Altcoin season. When will the explosive growth phase of altcoin season truly begin? Like we saw in the last two bull markets where certain altcoins were going up 50, 60, or even 100% in a single day. Well, I think it's closely linked to the gold price. Because when the gold price falls, this others chart, which is the altcoins, goes up. And right now, the gold price is in a Wyckoff distribution and is threatening to dump lower at any moment. In this video, I'm going to show you the relationship between gold and the altcoins and why that massive dump is coming very soon is going to pump altcoins like you have never seen before. Do me a favor, hit the like button, and let's get into today's video. Now guys, before we dive into that gold chart and look at different altcoins that are going to pump like crazy as soon as it dips out of this key chart pattern, just a quick disclaimer. Nothing I say in this video is financial advice. Everything I say is for entertainment purposes only. If you wish to invest in crypto, you should understand that it's risky and you can lose money. So don't use money that you can't afford to lose, and always do your own research before investing in anything. Now that we got that out of the way, let's crack on with it. Now guys, before we dive in and look at the gold chart as well as the reverse repo market, which is telling us something very key about a major shift that is going on behind the scenes, let's just have a look at the last 7 days or so in crypto from Bitcoin and Ethereum while I've kind of been away from the charts and just share with you a little bit more about what's been happening. Now as you can see, Bitcoin was pumping very strongly until the end of last week and then had a bit of a correction. Some will tell you it's because of what happened in the news and whatever else. I would just tell you it's because there was a correction on the M2 money supply, which is obviously what the Bitcoin price follows, and because a lot of the wider crypto market became a bit over leveraged. Too many people were getting a bit cocky, putting big leverage positions in on different altcoins and things like that, so the market needed to cool off. It needed to correct, because if everyone is over leveraged and the market pushes higher, it makes the price extremely unstable. It's not good for you, it's not good for me. So as we can see from the Bitcoin price, this dip that we've seen down here is pretty much over. And I expect to see Bitcoin and the altcoins pushing up from tomorrow onwards. Probably seeing another all-time high very soon once more. But to be honest, I'm way more excited about the Ethereum chart because as you can see, Ethereum has rallied very strongly recently and is now running into this previous all-time high area. You can see this was a spike back in May 2021. You can see that Ethereum then pushed up higher. Ethereum right now is struggling to get through this area, but once it really truly breaks beyond, altcoins everywhere will be going bananas. So when will the altcoins go bananas and why haven't they been moving that aggressively along with the M2? Well, because of one thing. M2 basically drives Bitcoin, right? It is the liquidity in the system. It's why we see money flooding into crypto all the time. USDT market cap just keeps going up and up by billions of dollars every single week. This money's finding its way into Bitcoin and into some of the altcoins, but not in any particularly aggressive fashion. Yes, we've seen the Bitcoin dominance falling, so in my opinion, altcoin season has already begun, but we're yet to discover that major growth phase. But that major growth phase is caused by something that happened in the global economy. And by understanding this, we're going to know exactly when that major explosion is going to happen. And it's going to happen because it's linked to basically whether or not banks, institutions, etc. are risk on or risk off. Let me just explain that for a moment. When they're risk off, they want to be involved in low-risk assets because the market economy is a little bit uncertain. Things are not necessarily going their way. They want to then be holding things like gold. They then want to hold things like bonds, treasuries, and other low-risk assets where they can pretty much guarantee themselves an income. On the flip side of things, when they're risk on, they're going to be into stocks, they're going to be into Bitcoin, and they're going to be into crypto. And the altcoins are pretty much the other end of this scale. So we've got bonds and treasuries at one end, you've got altcoins at the other far end. And that's why when we see crypto markets picking up, you start to see Bitcoin running, then Ethereum, then some of the larger caps, then the small caps, then you start to see meme coins and NFTs and all the other kind of crazier stuff going up very aggressively as that kind of money washes down through the system. So if we can identify the low risk assets out there that the institutions are in, and if we can identify that those low risk assets are about to fall or have already been falling, then we should have a good indicator that the money is about to move and wash down through that channel, aggressively hitting into the altcoins and things like that. Because as soon as that expansion phase begins, everything goes crazy. And the first thing I want to show you is this. It's the reverse repo market. Now, what you can see back on January the 4th, 2023, you can see that this was worth $2.55 trillion. Now, the overnight repo market belongs to the Fed. It's like the Federal Reserve Bank. And if banks and institutions want to put money into a low risk area to be able to get like 4% back or so, they can put money into this overnight repo market. Okay, so it's a really low risk place so that they can go and put a lot of money, earn a little bit of a percentage and not have to worry too much. Now, you'll notice that this started on the 3rd of January 2023, and then it started to fall aggressively. And that's pretty interesting, right? Because you can see that the Bitcoin price around the 3rd of January 2023 was worth around $16,700, and from there it aggressively started to move up and has been pretty much in an aggressive bull market ever since, despite having various different pullbacks, if we can call them that, along the way. Now, this overnight repo market, which is the safe end of the scale that I was talking about, was up here at the bottom of the bear market and is now coming down to being around zero. As soon as this starts to get to zero, bearing in mind it's at 33 billion right now and has fallen over 97%, that pretty much indicates that everyone is now looking to go risk on. Okay, they're looking to go into riskier assets, and that's because the US right now is about to cut interest rates. When interest rates come down, they can't just put money in here and earn interest rates, because they're going to be losing money on the money that they've borrowed from someone else. Okay, so if I borrow money at, let's say, 3% and I'm making 4%, I'm happy, I make 1%. But if I can now only make 3% or 2% because the interest rates get cut a lot, I'm now at a loss because I'm paying 3% to someone else. I have to then go down the risk curve and go into riskier assets. And this is basically what we're already starting to see. Now, to confirm this further, gold, that has been the store of value, the hedge against inflation, basically the asset that everyone holds when they're worried about where the economy is going, is in a very precarious position. In fact, gold has been going up aggressively for a very long time. Okay, Bitcoin has been like a store of value as well, like gold. And that's why Bitcoin perhaps has been going up as well. But altcoins are slightly different. They're like the opposite end of the scale. They're the riskiest assets of all against gold. And what we're seeing right now is that gold is in this classic Wyckoff distribution pattern. And in my opinion, this is like the LPSY. Okay, this is the last point of supply is what I believe it means. Okay, and ultimately, this means that this pattern is on the verge of breaking down. Okay, nothing can go vertical forever. Eventually, it has to cool off. Now, the Wyckoff distribution pattern is a pattern that was identified by Richard Wyckoff back in like the 1920s on Wall Street. Okay, he was a trader. He identified that the big banks, institutions were playing games to identify where these patterns would come in. And typically, they come in at the top of patterns to try and get more and more buyers to come into the space. And you also get Wyckoff accumulations, like we saw in the Bitcoin price, all the way down at the bottom of the bear market. And this allowed a number of people to get in to these absolute lows over here. Okay, so these distribution patterns have been around for hundreds of years and they're still being used today. So what does it mean for us? Well, it means that gold right now is on the verge of breaking out of this pattern and going lower. And I want to point out what happened last time gold had a major correction like this. As you can see, this was basically the end of October 2024. And I want to show you the others chart, which is the altcoins outside of the top 10 and what they did around this same date. You can see that this is basically the end of October here into the 4th, 5th of November. They go up extremely aggressively. This is basically an indicator at that time that the market was going risk on. Okay, we saw a lot of people suddenly speculating on what Donald Trump was going to do for crypto, what he was going to do for the global economy. It was looking more and more likely like he was going to get in. Eventually, he did get confirmed, okay, as the next US president. Everyone was super bullish and excited about this. He then pumped the price of altcoins to the upside as everyone went risk on. This is why this gold chart that did this led to that mini altcoin season that we saw back in November, December. Now, many people will be like, well, we didn't even see an altcoin season around then. This went up 136%. If we go back and look at some individual altcoins around that time, like Sui, you can see had a very, very strong run there. We have Beam having a very strong rally, Brett, a meme coin, having a very strong rally, and a lot of other altcoins as well had very strong rallies into that time. Now, this time is slightly different because this right now is happening ahead of time. This is preempting the interest rate cuts that are bound to happen in September. I say bound to happen because all other things are stacking up in the favor of an interest rate cut coming in around the 17th or 18th of September, whenever that FOMC meeting is. Now, when this eventually falls, it's going to be accelerated by an interest rate cut. So the question is, when will this happen? Well, if we were to draw this chart pattern, as you can see on the gold price here, it could happen really at any moment. This pattern here is a symmetrical triangle. Typically, these break out around 75% of the way through. And as you can see, we are kind of around that point now or have gone already past it. So there is a chance that this just does break down through and it could happen literally this week. I think if it happens this week, you will also see the Bitcoin dominance taking a tumble as well, going down towards this next area of support. Now, what I want to look out for in terms of when I can expect to see the next pullbacks and things like that is to maybe put in some areas of support for the Bitcoin dominance. As you can see, somewhere down here around 54-55%, we will likely see a bounce in this zone. Now, I know what you've been told, and I know people have been talking about this, that into September, we're going to see a strong correction. Now, that correction has been linked to many things. I personally agree with this because I do see this big pullback on the M2, and this does tell me that there could well be a bit of a pause in here for Bitcoin. Now, something to be aware of is this. When the Bitcoin price has been going up aggressively, it can sort of decouple in a way from the overall M2, and it can peak just a few days or so before, like it did here, okay, where it sort of peaked around this point, and then the M2 went up, and then Bitcoin kind of goes sideways. I do think that there is a chance that we might see this earlier or slightly later. And I know you're like, well, that doesn't help me at all, because do I need to sell on the kind of 10th of September or do I need to sell on like the 20th of September? I agree with you. It is confusing, but one thing that is worth paying attention to that might give you a little bit of a clue as to when to take some profits, not to necessarily sell everything, because I don't intend to do that. I intend to take some profits, is to use CoinGlass and go to the funding rate heat map, which is this one here. Okay. And then you just need to slide this across, go for like a year or so, and you can see something interesting here. Now, every single time this starts to go yellow, or in fact orange, it shows that the funding rates are high. You see funding rates 50%. And when they're really high, it shows that everyone's going long, and that's usually an indicator that we are ready for a correction. You can see that we had this basically coming in July. We then saw a little bit coming up again just the other day, around the 13th, 14th of August. Some charts going a little bit more orange. This is usually a good indicator that we are due to have a cool off in the short term. If you look over the last 2 weeks, 14th of August, you can see this suddenly goes orange here. If you go over the last year, you can see back in December, November, everything went orange. All of a sudden, market pulls back, corrects, everyone gets washed out. Basically happens time and time again. So what I've personally been paying attention to is what's going on with the FOMC meeting, because I do believe that that could be a sell the news event, which would happen around the 17th or 18th of September, which, as you can see, this basically peaks here on the 22nd. So that would kind of align with what we're basically saying. 17th, 18th comes in somewhere around here when the M2 is sort of just before, and that means that potentially we could see a peak slightly before, like we've seen over the past few times. Now, as many people are saying, is like, will the bull market be over at this point? I personally don't think so, because as soon as the interest rates cut and we see QE from the Fed, which is basically like money printing and everything else, you will start to see the dollar being devalued. If the dollar starts to devalue, guess what? All the other countries around the world, like China and countries in the EU and the UK and everyone else who have been wanting to print money because their economies are also struggling after COVID and after all these other things going on with tariffs and whatever else, they will also want to print money. They can print money far more aggressively if the dollar weakens enough, because that trade kind of like agreement between the US and whichever country is made easier. Okay, I'm obviously not an expert in economics, but I understand this. If the dollar is coming down, the global economy ultimately will increase its liquidity. They will pump money into the system. You can see this by the fact that when the DXY goes down, the M2 money supply goes up. When the DXY goes up, the M2 money supply goes down. Rate cuts equal weak dollar equal M2 increase, and we'll see this pump further towards the upside very, very aggressively. That will give us our kind of blow off top bull market. But remember, smart money, banks, etc. are preempting those moves. Now, guys, if you want to go buy any of the altcoins that I've talked about today, or any of the altcoins that I will ever talk about into the future, then go and sign up for a Bitunix, WEEX, or BloFin account, all linked down below in the description. Now, all of these different exchanges come with some of the lowest fees around, no KYC, and you can access various different small mid-cap altcoins that you can't access on the likes of Coinbase and Binance. If you want to be able to enter in early to certain altcoins on videos that I make, etc., so that you can beat the rush, then make sure you signed up for each and every one of these accounts, because by having all of these three, you're going to be able to access all the different coins, and you're going to be able to gather all of the different major bonuses that these offer. Now, all of these different exchanges have new and exciting sign-up bonuses available right now, so make sure you use those links down below in the description if you want to go and access those. If you want to be able to pick up on the different trades and things that I'm making, understand ahead of time which coins I'm going to be talking about, because I will make a video probably tomorrow with different coins that I'm personally going to be looking to enter into right now, other coins in my portfolio and different updates updates on certain narratives, etc., make sure you go and follow me on Twitter. It's Peter_THOC, because I tend to talk about things over there before I get a chance to talk about them on my main channel, okay? If you want to hear more about different coins and things I'm entering, that's probably the place to be. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it useful. We have been through a tough time in crypto, but don't let the kind of worry and fear of all that kind of time behind us hold you back, because right now we're heading into a very exciting period. You've got Bitcoin near enough all-time highs, Ethereum nearly at all-time highs, and when those push higher and higher, gold falls, everything's going to get very exciting indeed. Guys, do me a favor as well, if you haven't already, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, always helps out, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye-bye.